Hello class, good to be with you all this morning. Excited to talk a little bit about time again with you. Before doing so, let's go through our lesson plans and make sure we're all on the same page. So today you're going to work on your multiplication timesheet. Please keep working on these facts. I know that it takes a lot of practice, and we're practicing too at home, and so I know it takes time, but I appreciate you doing this because what it does is it continues to build your strength. So you're going to be doing multiplication today, and then on Wednesday, division. So if I could just give you a little bit of a clue, I would say, not a clue, I should say just an encouragement. I would do some extra division if you feel like that's your one that you really need to work on. So, and then we're going to be doing first language lessons this week. So that's pretty self-explanatory. I am telling parents to make sure that if there's on the top of the sheet it says review, and it usually says like review adjectives or review adverbs, I really want to make sure that those things you know. And so if you feel like that's a little rough, maybe mom or dad may have to make sure that they spend a little bit more time discussing, because we want to make sure you really have those. You're going to take your quiz today for spelling, and then you'll also be dictating, or your parents will be dictating N8 to you tomorrow. So we're almost done with our N lists, which is pretty incredible to believe. And then Secret Garden, we're going to be reading chapter 16, 17, 18, and 19 this week. And then for history, we're going to learn about War of the Roses. I find it a little confusing at times, and you may too. So that's okay. Just try to remember the main point. And then tomorrow you're going to learn about Princes in the Tower. And I have included a video. As a reminder, if you are taking your geography quiz again a second time, that's going to be due May 9th. And so one of the things I'm mentioning in the lesson plans is that you may want to do that more than once a week, more than twice a week. You may want to build that into your daily routine to make sure you really get it. And can I tell you what I do sometimes? I actually do it twice in a row when I learn something, so that I'm not just doing it one time per week or whatever. I'm going to be doing it 2 times. I'm going to see if I can beat my score that second time. Sometimes I even do it 3 times. And it doesn't take that long, but I just do it in a row to see if I can continue to find things that I'm missing. All right, we're going to go ahead and talk about math. Now, we've been talking a little bit about time, but now we're going to talk about conversions. This is where multiplication facts come in super, super helpful, because this is all about your 6 facts, okay? So we're going to be multiplying and working a lot with the number 60. That may seem really difficult until you realize that you already know your 6 facts. So here are your 6 facts, okay? So do you see 6 times 2 is 12? Well, 60 times 2 is what? 120. 6 times 3 is 18. 60 times 3 is 180. 6 times 4 is 24. 60 times 4 is 240. 6 times 5 is 30. So 60 times 5 is 300. And we go on, and you should be able to see a pattern. Our 6 times table is actually right here. It's just with 60, and you add a 0 to the end. So if you need to remember some of your 6 facts, maybe this week would be a good week to remind yourself of some of those facts that may have been forgotten. Remember, there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if I were to say how many minutes are in an hour, you would say 60. If I were to say how many minutes are there in 2 hours, 60 times 2, you would answer 120. If I were to say how many minutes are in 3 hours, you would take 60 times 3 to give you 180. If I were to say how many minutes are in 8 hours, what would you say? 60 times 8 is 480. Okay, so let's take it just one step further. Let me ask this question. 6 hours and 45 minutes equals how many minutes? Okay, in your mind, I want you to think of 6 times 60, or 6 times 6. But 6 times 60 is 360. And now we need to add that 45 minutes. And how many minutes do we have total? You can stack it if you would like. $405 minutes. Okay. If I were to instead ask how many minutes, but how many hours, let's think about that. So I have 180 minutes. How many hours? I'm going to take 180 divided by 60, or 18 divided by 6, and what would that be? I'm going to write that down so that you can see that. That's going to be 3 hours. Let's go ahead and do 240 minutes. How many hours? 240 divided by 60, or same as saying 24 divided by 6. How many hours? 4 hours. That is correct. Now, let's do something maybe another step, okay? Let's work with a number that isn't a multiple of 6. Can I explain the word multiple? When I say the word multiple, what I mean is when I say a multiple of 6, it's going to be an answer of 6 times something. So 6 times 2 is 12. 12 would be a multiple of 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 would be a multiple of 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 would be a multiple of 6. But what if I have a number that isn't one of those numbers, that isn't a multiple? Let's talk about that. Let's take 200 minutes equals how many hours? Hopefully by now, because of our conversion unit, you know that this answer will actually be hours and minutes. Okay, because we already said that well, let's talk about this. Is 20 a multiple of 6? 6, 12, 18, 24. It's not. So, how many times can 6 go into 20 without going over? This sounds like division, doesn't it, friends? It is. Okay. 6, 12, 18. Goes in there 3 times. So, 200 minus 180, or 20 minus 18, gives you what? That's right. I have 20 left over. So the answer would be 3 hours and 20 minutes. Now, let's do another one. Let's do 525 minutes. How many hours are in 525 minutes? Well, here we go. What is a multitude of 6 that is close to 52 without going over? Let's go through our 6 facts, shall we? 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. Yeah, that's really close to 52 without going over. 8. So let's go ahead and do 8. And 8 times 60 is 480. So now we're going to take 525 minus 480. Remember, 480 is the same as saying 8 hours. What do we have? Hold on for a second. Oh, I had the wrong number written down. I thought that was working out silly for me. There we go. There we go. I copied it down incorrectly. It was 525 minutes minus 480 minutes, and we ended up with 45 minutes remaining. Okay? Let's go ahead and talk through some examples in your textbook. Can you please turn to page 82? Okay. Now, number 6, they're just asking you to look at a table and figure out some minutes. So, the simple question, who took the longest time? Look at the hours, and we see that Jane has 2 hours and 5 minutes. Definitely more than the other 2 girls. And then, who took the shortest time? You have to compare Amy and Siti, and who had the shortest time, and you'll see it's Amy. So let's go ahead and just transition to number 7. Here we have the beginnings of a story problem. It said Mary took 1 hour and 35 minutes to complete a jigsaw puzzle. Write the time taken in minutes. Okay, so here we go. Let's do this together. 1 hour, 35 minutes. And the question is, how many minutes? How many minutes are there in an hour? 60, right? So we can just simply take 60 plus 35 to find how many minutes total. 95 minutes total. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and transition to number 8. And I'm not going to do all these examples because sometimes, well, I know you're going to have a workbook time, and I think the workbook you'll be able to work some of those examples on your own. But let's go ahead and do a couple of them together. Let's write in minutes, and this is going to be 8. We're going to do A, we're going to do C, and we're going to do F. Okay? So A is 2 hours. 2 hours equals how many minutes? Well, what's 6 times 2? 12. But it's 60 times 2. So it's 120 minutes. That one we could just do right in our heads, right? But C is going to be a little bit harder. We have 2 hours and 45 minutes. All right? What is 6 times 2? 12. So what's 60 times 2? 120. But am I done? Nope, I got to add these back in. So some of you may be able to do it in your head. If not, write it to the side. And you end up with 165 minutes. All right. And then let's go to F, where we have 3 hours and 15 minutes. 3 times 6 is equal to what? 18. So 3 times 60 is 180. And what's 180 plus 15? Some of you can figure that out in your heads. If not, write it to the side. And you end up with 195 minutes. Now, for number 9, here's a story problem, okay, using some conversions. So let's see if we can do number 9 together. Number 9 says, Mrs. Lee sewed 4 sets of curtains. She took 50 minutes to sew each set of curtains. Find the total time taken in hours and minutes. So here are my 4 sets of curtains. Oh, this looks familiar, does it not? And it takes 50 minutes for each one. So the question is, how many minutes total? So let's take 50 times 4 to figure out how many minutes. We end up with 200. 0 times 4 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. But we need to convert that in hours and minutes. So, what times 6 gives us an answer that's close to 20? 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Is that close to 20? Yeah. Yeah. So we can come up with 2 hours. That's 180. So let's go ahead and subtract those 2 hours. And we end up with how many minutes left over? That's right, 20 minutes left over. Let's go ahead and go to number 10. And instead of doing all the examples for number 10, we again are just going to do A, C, and F. And this time we are moving from minutes to hours and minutes. So we're going to start with 70 minutes. C is 100 minutes. And F is 210 minutes. Okay, we need to convert these to hours and minutes. How many minutes are in an hour? There's 60. So how many hours and minutes are in 70 minutes? We have 1 hour, and what's 70 minus 60? 10 minutes. All right. How many hours and minutes are in 100 minutes? Again, how many minutes are in an hour? 60. So 100 minus 60 gives us how many minutes? 40. I want to make sure you can see this. I'm beginning to wonder. Maybe you won't see the bottom. Here we go. And then 210 minutes equals how many hours and how many minutes? Well, 6 goes into 21 how many times without going over? Let's think of our multiples. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Is that close to 21? It sure is. That's right. So we have 3 hours. And then let's take that 210 minus 180. And I have how many minutes left? 30 minutes. Okay, now you're going to be able to get some good practice with that with workbook exercise 38. Now, I do want to introduce some word problems to you, and then I'm going to make a separate video going through a workbook exercise with you because it's a new concept for us, okay? So let's talk a little bit about word problems, and we're just going to go ahead and go to the next page, page 83. And we're going to look at number 11. A plane left San Francisco at 8 a.m. It arrived in Portland by 9:05 a.m. How long did the journey take? Now, I'm going to show you a way to draw out things for time. And I think that this is going to be helpful in understanding. The one thing I want to communicate is we want to work to the hour, okay? So this is going to be a little bit of a preview, and then we'll go through the workbook together. But watch what I do, okay? So I know a plane left San Francisco at 8 a.m. And I want to write a little timeline. And I want to get to the next hour, okay? So here's 1 hour on my line. Here's the next hour on my line, which is at 9 a.m. But did the plane land at 9 a.m. in Portland? No, it landed at 9:05. So we add another 5 minutes. So what will the time be? 9:05, right? So I have 1 hour from 8 to 9, and then 5 minutes from 9 a.m. to 9:05. So how long did the journey take? And you would have to write out your sentence after drawing this. You would have 1 hour plus 5 minutes. Okay, so you would write the journey took 1 hour and 5 minutes. Okay, does that make sense? It's okay if it's still a little foggy. We're going to go through another example, okay? Now, let's go ahead and look at number 12. All right, number 12 says this. Christy went to the market at 7:15 a.m. and she came home 1 hour, 45 minutes later. When did she come home? Okay, so let's go ahead and write one of those lines again. Because remember, hours are easier to work with than a bunch of minutes. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a line here. And we're going to take 7:15, and then we're just going to get to 1 hour to 8:15. Okay, we're just going to work by hours here. And then, what did it say? She still has 45 minutes, okay? So, what we're going to do to show this is I'm going to add 45 minutes here, but then I'm going to make this my question mark, okay? Because we don't know what time she came home. Remember, we want to get to the hour. So, when I work from 8:15 and I want to get to 9 o'clock, how many minutes would that be? 45. 45 minutes. There it is. And maybe I did that a little backwards, but think about it this way. Remember our clock? Okay. 8:15, 8:30, 8:45, 9 o'clock. The span is 45 minutes. Do you remember that? Yeah. If you need to look at a clock, and honestly, when I was in 3rd grade and I was doing time things like this, I would actually look at a clock and kind of move the little clock with my finger to figure that out. Okay? So then my answer would be, she came home at 9 a.m. Okay. Now we're going to go move to number 13. Okay? Sally took 1 hour and 10 minutes to do her homework. She finished doing her homework at 9:40. When did she start? Let's draw. She finished it at 9:40. And we know that it took her how long? 1 hour and 10 minutes. So let's work to our hour. What's 1 hour before 9:40? 8:40. And what's 10 minutes before 8:40? 8:30. Okay, I took 40 minus 10 to give me 30. So our sentence would say, she started at 8:30. Okay, this is a new concept for us. Singapore goes through this for reviews, kind of touches on it a little bit, but I know that we're going to need some more help. So those of you who feel ready, you can go ahead and do your workbook exercise for Tuesday, which for most of you will be tomorrow. But I'm going to go ahead and make another video showing us how to do the next workbook exercise for those who need or who desire just a little bit more practice with me. Thanks.